In this video, I'm going to teach you about all of Roblox's UI objects, so you can get started using them today. They're super useful, I promise. First up is UI padding. It essentially adds a bit of distance between the outer edge of a parent frame and all the children inside it. Next is UICorner. Ever wanted to round out the edges of your GUI to make it feel more comfortable and inviting? UICorner does exactly that. If you make a square, you can even round it out to make it a circle as well. What about UI aspect ratio constraint? This is useful if you want to specify the width and length ratio of a UI object such as a frame. I mostly use this UI object in order to make sure an item is always going to be square, setting aspect ratio to 1. Let's get to UI list layout. Now this one's useful. This item lines objects up in a list, which you can set to be either horizontal or vertical. Also take note of the sort order property. By default, it's set to layout order, which is a property of most UI objects that you can change to adjust the order that they appear in. What about UI grid layout? It's basically the grid version of UI list layout. It lines objects up in a grid where each object is scaled to be the same size based on the UI grid layout's properties. This also uses the layout order from before. Okay, now UI page layout is cool. UI page layout organizes sibling frames in such a way that they line up like pages on an app might. You can change the tween info as well as the direction the pages form. Make sure to set the parent frame's clips descendants property to true if you don't want the extra pages going off the screen. UI gradient allows you to customize the color and transparency of a frame using a gradient. You can then rotate this gradient or offset it from the default position to create some cool effects. UITableLayout is one I'm not as familiar with, but it works similar to a double UI list layout. Siblings of the UITableLayout object will be ordered like a UI list layout, but the children of each of those siblings will also be ordered like a UI list layout. This is basically just like Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel. UI size constraint allows you to set both a minimum and maximum pixel size to a UI object. This is mostly useful for making sure the UI looks good on different screen sizes, setting minimum and maximum size values so they don't ever scale too small or too big. You can view different screen sizes in Test Display. UI text size constraint is essentially the same, but for text font size. This allows you to add a minimum and maximum to the text scaled property of a text. UI scale is another simpler one. It essentially just scales whatever you put inside it by multiplying its size by a number. One cool thing you can do with this is open a menu by scaling its size from 0 to 1 using this object. Finally, we have UI stroke. This has two main uses, to add an outline around text and to add an outline around a frame. The benefit to using this over text stroke is that you can customize the size and shape of the outline as well as the color and transparency. Note that the border portion of this object also works in combination with UICorner. Have fun combining all these objects to your heart's extent, and I hope you enjoyed the video.